Hey guys, my name is Lucas, and my favorite thing is balisong flipping, also known as butterfly knife flipping.
Welcome to the Finding Favorites podcast, where we explore your favorite things without using an algorithm. Here's your host, Leah Jones.
Hello, welcome back to Finding Favorites. I'm your host, Leah Jones, and we've made it to 2021. A couple weeks ago, we had Jen Ucelis on, the Klingon pop warrior. Her Kickstarter for her third EP launched on January 1st and is already funded. She's aiming towards her stretch goals, which include doing the work to make her entire catalog available on Spotify. So if you haven't been able to support her work and you enjoyed her episode, hop on over to her Kickstarter account and help her reach that stretch goal, which is, one of the things I really admire about Jen is her efforts to do right by everyone involved, which is paying the translators, paying the musicians, the sound editors, paying for rights to the people who own the rights of the songs that she translates and performs. So if you want to see her Klingon pop songs have greater access for people, you can hop on over to her Kickstarter. This week on the podcast, I'm talking with Lucas Cow. He is the owner of Squid Industries, which makes balisong flipping knives. You'll learn all about it. This is a hobby that my nephew has picked up over the last year or so. And when I asked him who to interview about flipping knives, butterfly knives, balisong, he suggested that I follow Lucas. And then I reached out and he said yes, which is a lot of fun. If you have people that you want to hear interviewed about their favorite thing, please make an introduction. I'm always looking for new to me people to talk to for this podcast as we go into the new year. I'm getting close to 40 episodes, which is pretty wild. I heard an interview between Lauren Lapkus and Kevin T. Porter on his 20 episode podcast called Inside Voices. And she said that most podcasts don't get past 10 episodes. So I'm feeling pretty proud of the fact that this was not just a summer lark for me. I don't know that this will last for years, but I'm certainly enjoying the long conversations with people that I know and people who are new to me. I'm enjoying learning the skills of Adobe Audition and how to do better sound quality management. I learned a few new things this week, so hopefully you notice an improvement in sound quality. For fun, I've been working on a podcast-oriented Hallmark Christmas rom-com screenplay, because why not? Why not write a screenplay in all my free time? That has been, I don't know, it's a fun, different creative pursuit and something I'll be working on as we head into the new year. I'm curious what your new hobbies for 2021 are. What are the favorite things that you're going to dive into more deeply as we continue the wait for vaccines? It's been so exciting to see so many of my friends getting vaccines, both here and in Israel. I'm really excited for the future with a COVID vaccine. Anyway, Happy New Year. Stay safe, stay home, wear a mask, and keep washing your hands.
Hello and welcome to Finding Favorites. I'm your host, Leah Jones. This is the podcast where we talk to people about their favorite things and get recommendations without using an algorithm. Here's the thing. I'm excited every week. This is maybe only the second or third time on this podcast that I've interviewed someone who is a complete stranger, which I think is really exciting. And so today I have with me Lucas Cow, who is the founder of Squid Industries. Squid Industries. How are you doing today, Lucas?
I'm doing great, Leah. Thanks so much for having me.
Where are you in the world? Are you in California still?
Yep, I'm in Fremont, California.
Awesome. Fremont is northernish.
It's very close to the San Francisco Bay Area. Well, it's considered within the San Francisco Bay Area. It's about an hour south of San Francisco.
Okay. I had a summer internship in San Francisco in 1996. So that's where when I built my understanding of the Bay Area, which was a very different Bay Area than exists in 2020. Lucas, first I'll explain. Lucas is here because my nephew Henry has gotten really into doing tricks with, I asked you before and now I already can't pronounce it. What's
The pronunciation that I use is balisong.
Balisong knives.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So we're going to get into talking about that. But I was talking to my nephew Henry and I said, do you want to come on my podcast and talk about balisong knives? And he was like, no, but you should ask Lucas to come on because he's awesome. So that is how we met, is I followed you on Instagram and then asked you, hey, do you want to come on my podcast? And you said yes.
Well, tell your nephew he's awesome as well.
I will.
He definitely should have his turn next.
I'll get him there for sure. So how has this year been for you, 2020, under the pause of COVID?
Well, COVID has obviously been challenging for everyone, but for Squid Industries in particular, I would say that COVID had a kind of like a double-edged sword effect for us. On one end, it really disrupted our supply chains. Everyone was, self-quarantining. So that obviously slowed down or completely cut off some of the supplies that we were getting domestically, internationally. And so we had to figure out new channels to find those things that we were, sourcing from them. On the other hand, because of the quarantining, we were seeing an increase in interest in the balisong scene in general. And I think that has a lot to do with the fact that, social media is very powerful, and also that there's only so many things that you can actually do when you're home. And so, kids kind of gravitate towards this type of skill toy / flow art hobby. And we can get into that a little bit later. And so it just we saw an increase in demand and a decrease in supply, and we really struggled to meet the demand because of that. But over time, I think that struggle pushed us to figure out more efficient ways to do the things that we were already doing. And so I think that it was a great experience overall. So I would say that it was, in general, a positive thing. I feel like we're very lucky because I don't think that other companies have the, they weren't in the position like we were in. It's not like we knew that people would want to be interested in it during quarantine. So I think that was very lucky for us.
Yeah, because I can imagine, as we were talking about before I hit record, my quarantine hobby is podcasting, but you're looking around and you're like, what can I do in my house that's new and doesn't bother my parents while they're working remotely, or my siblings, and they're like, you kind of need indoor quiet hobbies. Right. And at a level, balisong is that, right? Like it's not a loud hobby to pick up.
Well, it can be, depending on how you do it. But yeah, in general, I would say that, if you're practicing over something soft, then yeah, it can definitely be considered something quiet.
Yeah. And you, as I was looking at the website, you do your manufacturing in the US, right?
Yep, that's correct. Mm-hmm.
But was it that supplies from other places in the US or things were stuck on ships, or what? Yes. How far back in your supply chain were things getting caught up?
It was honestly all over the place. We had things that were already on order, things that we needed, and so, things that we would typically, like, for instance, we do all of our manufacturing here in the States. But, some of our accessories or some of our boxing supplies or packaging supplies, those come internationally. And
Yeah.
so, some of those we kind of had to shift around. Some of them that we were sourcing internationally became domestic, and some of the domestic became international. But I would say that in general, more of it became domestic than international. And so that definitely helped us accelerate some timelines, further down the year as things started to come back online as normal.
Yeah, I have a friend in warehouse real estate, and he just has said the number of manufacturers in the US that need warehouse space and the different needs of space in this current economy and climate it's just like been a complete shift in his business. So I can imagine when you're in manufacturing of a technical device, how that would have hit you.
Yeah, it can definitely be challenging sometimes. Yeah, not really sure how we managed to make it work looking back, but I guess we did.
But you got there.
Yeah.
Were you a popular Christmas gift? Did you have some supply drops in time for people to get it out for Christmas, or is this something people buy for themselves? Because I wouldn't know the first thing of giving one of these knives as a gift. So I'm curious if you saw like a Christmas impact.
It's kind of hard to say because our customers don't tell us directly what they're purchasing it for.
Sure.
But I definitely have seen, just seeing people tag us on Instagram, stuff like that it's definitely a pretty popular Christmas gift because there are a lot of kids into it. And because there's a lot of kids into it, a lot of parents know that their kids are into it. And so naturally, kids will request or parents will try to surprise them with, one of our products. Because if you're new to the genre of balisong, flipping and balisong trainers and knives, there's an entire category of, this kind of Amazon trainer where they kind of range between like $5 and $20. And,
okay.
That's kind of how most people are exposed to it, just randomly looking around on Amazon. And then if you really want to dive into, the entire collecting hobby and stuff like that and try to work your way into getting something with higher quality, then you'll find companies like us. And so they'll notice that it's going to be a little bit more than what you'd see on Amazon. And so a lot of parents will typically wait for their kids' birthdays or an event like Christmas. And so, during this particular season, it's typically super busy for us.
Yeah. Maybe what we should do is travel back in time, because what I'm not Guy Raz, and this isn't how I built this.
I don't know. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want to steal your thunder for when you are obviously going to be a guest on his podcast. I will wish that into the world for you.
That would be amazing, but I don't foresee that anytime soon, but I'll work very hard for it.
Yeah. Maybe your first appearance could be how sometimes there's like a 10-minute little clip at the end.
Yeah, they have like a tiny little segment at the end.
I want to leave like the business questions to Guy Raz.
Okay, sure.
And I want to know take me back in time to the first time you got one of these knives.
Yeah.
And tell me about that.
So the year was 2013, and that was the year that I actually graduated high school. So just to explain that, I am 25, and I graduated in the class of 2013 from Irvington High School in Fremont. And during that summer, my very close friend, his name is also Lucas, he actually had gone to San Francisco, and he had gone to Chinatown there. And the thing is that he was just looking around and he found a butterfly knife.
Mm-hmm.
So he bought it, and he brought it over to me a couple of days later and said, Lucas, you should try this out. This is so cool. You would be so good at this. Because at the time, throughout my high school and elementary school, actually ever since I was a kid, I've been into these skill toy type hobbies, things like the Rubik's Cube, things like pencil spinning, yo-yoing, all those kinds of things that require some kind of hand dexterity, some high hand-eye coordination type of hobby.
So are you a speed Rubik's Cuber? Are you a speed
I'm
solver?
I'm a Rubik's Cuber, but far from the speed part.
Okay.
I think my best timing was like maybe 45 seconds. I think that for your average person, that's probably pretty fast. But when it comes to real speed cubing, they're like under 10, 20 seconds or something like that. So
I went to the championship once. I attended, as a spectator. It was in Chicago one year, and a friend wanted to enter, and I went and I watched it in person. And when you watch a video of speed cubing or speed solving, you can imagine it being manipulated. And then you watch people in person, and it is wild to watch. It's just like magic.
Yeah, it's happening so fast you just can't comprehend, right? Yeah.
Okay,
well,
so
I'm far from that.
You're far from that, but you can solve a Rubik's Cube in less than a minute. So not shabby.
Yeah.
All right. So Lucas brings you a butterfly knife that he's found in San Francisco.
Right. And my first reaction to that is get that the hell away from me, because that thing looks like it'll shred my hands apart, man.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, what? Come on. It's so much fun. And he's showing me these really basic tricks. And I'm like pretty amazed. Like at the time, because I was so novice and new to it, I couldn't even comprehend the motion of a basic opener. And so, it was honestly really, really cool. But the fact that it was a knife, it really detracted me. And I was a little bit scared of it. And, I just told him to, just take it back. But in the end, I think he ended up leaving it there at my place. And I'm not really exactly sure why that is. But, I think slowly one of the days in that summer, I ended up looking up some YouTube tutorials, and I slowly started getting into it through that.
Yeah. So was this because you sell trainers that aren't sharp at all, right?
That's correct.
So this was one that was like a serrated knife, and it was like a sharp blade.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay.
Yeah, that would deter me from trying it.
Yeah, it definitely requires some. I'm not really sure how to. I don't want to say guts, but it takes some willpower to definitely overcome the fear of getting yourself cut. Even though after you do it, the cutting is honestly not that bad. A lot of people always make a joke. It's very common, like, "Oh man, if I did that, I'd definitely lose a finger." That's actually impossible, because the knife is not nearly sharp enough, and it doesn't have nearly enough mass to travel through your fingers. So at the very worst, it's like a super deep, paper cut. Usually, sometimes it can get to the point where, it cuts to the point where you have to get a stitches or something like that. But it's generally never that bad. People usually really exaggerate it. Once you get over that fear, it's not too bad.
When I watch the tricks, I more think of it looks like you would get pinched between the handles. Like that seems more of a risk almost than the knife hitting you. Is the two handles coming together fast and pinching skin or something?
That definitely happens. Pinching is a thing for sure. But typically when the handles come down and collapse onto your hand, it should be usually on purpose. Yeah, there are tricks that require some ricocheting and stuff like that. So that's pretty common. So hopefully you are doing it on purpose.
Great. And I will, in the show notes, I will link to some Instagram accounts, and I'll make sure that I link so that as people listen to this, if they haven't been following you or other people in the community on Instagram, so they can see some of the tricks we're talking about. So I'll make sure to include that in the show notes. Okay. So you go on YouTube, you find some videos, you start teaching it to yourself. And then when do you start having opinions about the quality of knives, or how do you then find out there are other knives to buy?
So yeah, that's a great question too. So this is fast forward another year, and I'm going to De Anza College at the time. And De Anza College is a local community college in Sunnyvale. There's a Cupertino. And I was taking an intro to engineering class, and that particular professor was very, very interesting because he only liked to tell personal anecdotes and not really teach. So in the end, a lot of students just decided to not listen to that and just go on their computers and just do whatever they wanted.
Yeah.
And it was a computer lab. The guy next to me, he was looking around the internet and I saw him browsing a knife retail website, an online retail website called bladehq.com.
Yeah.
And he was looking at butterfly knives. And I'm like, you're into this too? No way. So he's like, yeah, man. And he starts telling me about his collection and his, the things that he was proud of owning. And I have no idea what he's talking about. And I'm like,
right.
Oh, that sounds pretty cool. Never heard of that company or brand or whatever it is. And that kind of sent me down a long rabbit hole of trying to find my own, next product, because I had been using the knife that my friend Lucas had given me. And I think that as I got better, I came to realize that the construction was not that great.
Yeah.
And so I was looking to upgrade to the next level. Meeting that guy in the internet engineering class showed me Blade HQ, helped me get introduced to the current market. And then that's where I started collecting.
Okay. And did you guys then did he like show you knives in person, or did you start learning tricks together, or he just like, it's serendipity and you learn, like it opens a door, but you guys don't do knife tricks together?
No, he was never really into tricks. He liked the collecting aspect of it, because there is a very strong collecting aspect in that. Quite a few of them are rare or custom pieces. So, or both, right? So yeah, I mean, I ended up getting very, very deep into the tricks part, or also known as flipping. And, he just helped me get introduced to what was available and not really the tricks themselves.
Nice. And then the rest of the class was a wash.
Yeah. Great class though. Great class.
Yeah. Great. So you find out that there are more knives out there, and you start expanding your own collection.
Right.
And then is there a point where you find other people in person who do flipping, or is it like really an internet community for you?
It was definitely internet first, for sure. The way that I discovered the internet community is by going through a certain message board called Jersey Devil. It's this, it's some knife board really. And, they had a subcategory specifically for butterfly knives. So that was just where I was most active. And I think the way I was introduced to that community was through another friend, but I don't remember how. But that was kind of the main place for me for a while.
Yeah.
At the time, I was also using Reddit quite heavily, and I noticed that Reddit had a butterfly knife subreddit as well, but the activity was very, very low. There's very few members. But because I preferred Reddit as a platform, I was using that a lot.
Yeah.
And because I was so into Jersey Devil and active, there as well, I was taking the knowledge I was learning from there and helping people on Reddit. That turns into a whole nother story. But that was basically how I got connected to the community. Was I was helping people get into balisongs because they were just like me. They had something really cheap from online, from wish.com or Amazon. And they're like, I want to get to the next, what's the best thing I can get for $20, for $50, for $100. And based on my own collection and my own preferences, what I've seen people talk about, I would give them my opinion. And this happened for so long that eventually I had started to realize that there was something wrong with the balisong market.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't recommend anything between $20 and $220. There's basically like this large rift in the market. At the time, there's actually, right as I got into it, there's a knife called the Bradley Kimura. It was made by Kershaw Knives. That one was around $110. And it was actually really good. That was the one that people typically recommended for intermediate or, newcomers that wanted something of decent quality. But Kershaw discontinued it. So it really wasn't an option.
Right. Because then you get into like people have collections. The one thing I've learned from Henry is that if it's a limited edition knife, that they can be very expensive. If you find one, like one of those Kershaw knives might be like very expensive today.
Right. Yeah. Anything discontinued, even if it's bad, it's usually, I mean, there's quite a few collectors out there, so they can be really difficult to find.
Yeah. So there's the $20 knife you get online. It gets you into it. And then there's just there's this gap, and it's a big leap for like, I want to spend $20 on a hobby to I'm ready to go pro with a $200 knife.
Exactly.
And so like, what's the step up?
Some options, like Bear & Sons had a line called the Bear Ops line, and that was around $60 to $80. And I actually bought one. That was actually the knife that I bought right after the knife that Lucas had given me. That was at the time, since I didn't know anything, that was what it made sense to me considering my budget. And it was the Barrett's B400. I think it was $80 or something like that. But after using it for a couple of years and getting better, I realized that it actually really sucked. Even though compared to the original one from Chinatown, it was better. It was still not good enough that I would recommend it, because at that time I had my collection had things that were worth more than that, and just comparing it didn't make sense in a long-term investment to get the Bear & Sons. So effectively, I kind of ruled that particular option out. Even though it did exist, I just wouldn't tell people to go for it because it was just so poorly made.
Yeah, that it was going to be disappointing, and it wasn't going to make the hobby or the skill like more fun. It was just going to be like, here's a piece of hardware that's not like, it's not escalating with somebody's skill set, maybe.
Yeah, it wasn't all that bad. I just felt that it just wasn't worth the money in the long term.
Okay.
It wasn't like super awful, but I think it was better to save your money at that point.
So you get active in the Reddit community, which I had opened up because I saw it on your website, and it's a 46,000 member subreddit now.
Yeah, it's growing so fast, faster than I could have ever really imagined. I think it was back in 2015 when I became the head moderator there.
Yeah.
And at the time we were seeing posts. The top post of the week would be getting 10 upvotes, maybe 15, and then nowadays we're seeing like in the hundreds, like 500, 600, 700, and it really blows my mind.
Yeah. Are you still active as a moderator?
I'm really not,
community?
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
I think that because I'm so ingrained in the business, I find myself kind of holding myself back from using any social media in relation to it too often, not nearly as often as before. I think it's just because it's a little bit too consuming. Mixing my career with my hobby has been amazing, but working on balisongs for your 9-to-5 job and then going home and then going on social media and looking at more of it, I think that for me, I sometimes feel like I need that disconnect, just because I'm so ingrained with it.
That
so
makes
I'm
sense.
not nearly as active as I used to be, but I still go on there because I do feel like I'm still part of that community. And, I just want to know what people feel about our products and other products. And I think it's good to stay connected with your audience. I do make posts probably, I would say on average, probably like once a month, whatever I'm working on, or I'll give the community like an update on upcoming projects and stuff like that. Definitely not as active as I used to be.
Yeah. I remember years ago, I was a manager of an ice cream parlor, and there was a forum in Chicago called the LTH Forum, and it was a food forum. And if I would go and comment on anything, I was active in it. And then I became a manager of a local restaurant. And then I couldn't comment on anything without saying like, hi, I'm Leah. I'm the manager of Sweet Occasions. And now I'm going to have my own personal opinion. But like, people had to know that I worked somewhere so that I wouldn't get in trouble for like not disclosing my,
Yeah. I can see how they can get complicated.
So the number of public food opinions I had went way down when I was in that job. So not the same as founding like a manufacturing and but I understand that when you're in a community and then the community becomes your vocation.
Right.
Awesome. So you become a moderator of the Butterfly Knife, the balisong Reddit community, and you see like an opening in the market. But is there a point where you try to, because you also then you started school as a mechanical engineering student, right?
Actually, it's computer engineering, but that didn't last very long. At the time I was working in that particular year, I think it was 2015, is when I started working at my parents' machine shop. And that's when I made the transition to mechanical.
Okay. So you grew up knowing your parents have a machine shop. So when you got into this, you sort of already knew a little bit about manufacturing?
Actually, like not at all. The manufacturing shop that they had was very, very small. It was, only a handful of machines, and it was just more of an R&D type of place. And I had, I knew about it and I'd seen it, but it was never something I really interacted with. So
it was just like where your parents went during the day.
Yeah, it was just like one small particular part of their business, because there was much more to it than just the R&D machine shop. So
yeah.
I only got to really get ingrained into it because that was where I was working. I was just an entry level metal fabricator, just cutting stock on various saws and grinders, just doing very, very basic work. But that helped me gain the foundation I needed to get at least the interest, and eventually that interest turned into me finding some actual education at De Anza College.
Wow.
Yes, De Anza has a really, really great machining program.
Yeah.
And after being into the hobby for a little bit and working at the machine shop, I was like, maybe I should try to actually learn some skills here. So that's when I decided to enroll into some machining courses. I was still, on the track to do mechanical engineering, but it was more on like a hobby side that I wanted to know more about manufacturing in general. Yeah. That's why I took some courses. Yeah.
Because I can imagine you said it was a Sunnyvale community college. So there are some Sunnyvale, Cupertino. There are a couple of technology companies there that overwhelm the professional future. So I can absolutely imagine starting in computer engineering if that's where you are.
Yeah, it was mostly because of my dad, because I really look up to him, and he'd always been doing super cool computer engineering stuff, so I wanted to be just like him.
Yeah. So with it, I'm so curious, because my dad has like always been coming up with new ideas, and he has said to me before, like, how do you find like, where do I find a shop where they'll make like 100 of these so I can test the idea? So if it is an R&D machine shop where people are coming to your parents and their company with ideas and they're helping them manufacture prototypes, or is it a company where they are also the inventors?
Yep, that's correct. Yeah. So they are manufacturing test equipment for the hard drive industry. And so they needed that internal R&D center so that they can test their own ideas.
Wow.
Yeah. It was also not just R&D. It was also some production as well. Once they had the idea, they needed the shop so they could make the stuff to sell.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was really cool.
That's so cool. So you're taking some mechanical engineering classes, you're working in the machine shop. And at what point do you say you want to try prototyping a new type of balisong for yourself?
So the first project I had was actually not a balisong. This was in the summer of 2015. And at the time, the Bradley Kimura actually came back. So as you recall, the Bradley Kimura in 2013 was discontinued. Everyone was pretty upset. So 2015, Kershaw was like, hey, we've come back with a new Kimura, the Kimura 11. Well, it turns out that the Kimura 11 was the worst Kimura in Kimura history.
Oh, no.
And I think what happened was that they were going to make a Bradley Kimura that used a new construction. It was a steel handle construction with G10 overlays or scales. And for those of you who aren't familiar, it's basically like a strong metal interior to give it support. And then G10 is a glass reinforced material that basically becomes an outer layer. And that outer layer is what gives it that it gives it the texture and it gives it the form so that, the user can interact with the knife itself. What ended up happening was that I think at some point in the manufacturing, they decided that they just wanted to ditch the project. So they just sold it with just the interior steel frame itself. So it was like a half finished project, and it was very apparent. It was like so thin, like the handles were so thin that everyone was taken back. They're like, this looks terrible. It feels terrible. It was like two sticks put together. It was so thin that everyone was shocked that they would even ship it.
Wow.
But I think that they had invested so much into the project and they had so many units that they just didn't want to just throw them away. So they might as well just sell it as a half built product. And so I took that as an opportunity to make the scales myself. I said, okay, I'm going to make the scales, and then people can put it on their existing Kimuras. So that's exactly what I did. I don't think I made that many. I think I made around 25 sets in total. There's 4 pieces, one for each handle, and there's two slabs each, so 4 pieces total. And I mainly used the resources of my boss. He kind of did, at the time, he did all the hard work. And he did the programming of the machines, he did all the technical work, and really all I did was do the design work. I just chose how it looked and how it felt, and just the overall dimensions. But he was the one that really helped me take care of the difficult technical aspect.
Yeah, that is amazing. That's kind of like, it's a phone case, or here's this product, and in order to make it better or make it function for people, you're selling like an aftermarket product.
Yep. And that aftermarket product ended up being a great experience, because not only did it teach me a lot of fundamentals about manufacturing, that also helped me segue into the next project, which was the first balisong that I made. Because of the work that I'd done making the scales, that helped me gain some credibility in the community.
Yeah.
So people knew that I was, quote unquote, a maker, and that, the work that I did had some decent quality to it. So, to transition to that story, after making those scales, I decided I was done. I didn't want to make those anymore because I felt that the demand wasn't really there.
Right.
It was kind of hard for people to buy a relatively expensive half-built product and then invest almost more than half that money into upgrading it to what it should be.
That makes sense to me. And people also probably found out pretty quickly, don't buy this knife. So
right. Yeah. It was overwhelmingly negative reviews across the board. It was impossible to like it. It was so terrible.
Wow. From a business point of view, the reward's not there of just doing aftermarket products for bad knives. So you move on to designing your first knife?
It was actually a trainer.
Okay.
So because of the complexities of making a knife, I decided to just make a trainer, because everything else is just so much simpler with just having it be a trainer. I wanted to make something that was kind of similar to the way that the Kimura filled that gap in the market. It's kind of right in the middle. So I was looking for a middle end, well-made balisong trainer that flipped like a top tier product in the 100, on the 200 or 300s.
Yeah.
But it used, lower end manufacturing so that it could be a little bit more affordable.
And when it's a trainer, that means it's not sharp.
Right. A trainer is basically, it looks very similar to a knife. It could feel identical in terms of how it, it feels in your hand and in motion.
Yeah.
But yeah, utility wise, it is not sharp, and it's just a flat, dull piece of metal.
So I just because I have the Reddit open. So this one on the left, the white one is a trainer.
Yep, that's our squiddy.
Oh, that's yours.
Yep.
Okay.
And on the right, that's actually, it's funny that they're in the same photo. That's the Benchmade 51 Morpho. And that's actually the one that I was recommending to people. I was like, if you have $200, or so dollars, get the 51. So
okay, nice. So I will put the link of this specific Reddit post also in the show notes. All right. So I'm also curious, there are restrictions, like every state has a different approach to balisong knives. So does a trainer also make, like, from a liability standpoint, is that easier for you to do a trainer instead of having to deal with like knife laws?
Yeah, for sure. There's some complex knife laws in California. So the trainer part made it easy for me in all regards. And especially not just for like California itself, but also for a lot of people who live internationally, where knife laws are even more strict than they are in California. Yeah, there was definitely, I didn't realize at the time, but there was definitely a huge international trainer market that I didn't realize that I was coming into.
So what is the process of like making your first trainer? Take me through a little bit of that. How do you pick the materials, prototype shapes? Are you still working closely with your boss on that, or are you taking on more of the design, the like mechanical design of it, or are you still working in partnership with them?
Well, I'm glad you asked, actually. Unfortunately, my parents' company over the years, since 2015, it was in decline. And so that machine shop eventually closed. But on the bright side, because Squid Industries had grown so much, I ended up hiring my boss, and now he's one of my machinists.
Amazing.
I actually ended up also going to school and learning some skills. And after that, I did some self-study, and I ended up basically teaching him as well in kind of like the more modern way to machine things.
Yeah.
I don't want to get too technical because otherwise it's not going to make any sense. I basically gave him an updated curriculum. And so now he's a core part of our manufacturing team.
Oh, that's so exciting.
Yeah, it's honestly amazing. So the whole process, like you were saying, the first one that I made is called the Squid Trainer, and that comes from my name, Squid Master.
Right.
So that's just a play on words there. And I chose a variety of materials that I thought were going to be relatively cheap. When it comes to really high-end knives, like the 51 Morpho we described earlier, that one uses titanium liners and G10 scales. Liners are the underlying material that I mentioned that are part of the Kimura that was half built. They only included the liner part and not the scales. So so when it comes to like high-end knives, they're typically stuff like titanium. That's usually like the de facto standard. And so for low-end knives, most people are using various cast alloys like zinc and aluminum, random steels. The stuff that you find for really, really low-end knives, you actually don't even know what material that is. But I thought that using aluminum or steel was going to be the best case.
Yeah.
And in the end, I found that aluminum was the best medium for it in terms of manufacturing costs and material costs. So it was really just through trial and error at the time because I didn't know much about manufacturing myself. So it took quite a bit of trial to figure out that aluminum is going to be the material of choice. And when it comes to blade material as well, that was also equally trial and error. Yeah, it was not a very refined science by any means.
I imagine it's gotten more refined the longer you've had your company open.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, I've definitely had enough time to do the necessary R&D that I wanted to on the materials that I thought were viable for making balisongs.
Yeah. So you do the first one, the Squid Trainer. And is this still it's still a part-time, you're still going, is this when you were in San Diego or?
I was still actually going to DeAngelo College at the time. It was just a part-time thing. And we were working on my trainer stuff kind of like after the hours, when we had downtime. So it wasn't like a major thing. It was just more of like a side project. And,
sure.
I just wanted to do it because I felt like people would want it. And so I was working on it pretty lightly at the time.
Right. How long, how many months or years was it from the idea, I'm going to make a trainer, to taking your first order, feeling comfortable to have people place orders? Only 3 months. Oh, it was a side project, but moved very fast.
It moved fast only because my boss at the time, his name is Phat, Phat, is because he's a wizard and he's so good at what he does. So, I just gave him like the napkin sketches, and I said, this is what I want it to look like. And I had my collection with me to show him, and he took numbers that he saw were common in all of the designs that I had. So that gave him some reference to make what I was looking for.
Wow.
So he ended up making it, and we worked on it together across that particular 3 months. That was I believe from September to December of 2015. And eventually I ended up taking my first 4 orders. And the way I did that was I posted on Instagram. I said, hey guys, I've got 4 of these. Who wants them?
Yeah.
And I ended up getting way more, demand than I ever expected. I think like 30 to 40 people ended up commenting. And so I ended up having to choose at random.
Yeah.
I think that was the way I did it so I could do it fairly.
So that's when you found out there might not have been a market for the scales, the aftermarket scales, but here you found a need.
Yep. That was how I found the need.
What's been, since you then opened the company and started manufacturing more regularly, what do you think has been some of the coolest things that have happened for you? Are there, are there trade shows, or have you gotten to travel? You said you found out, you were surprised that you had an international market. Is there ever any in-person part of this other than manufacturing?
Sure. There's 2 large in-person knife trade shows that we go to. It's Blade Show, in the year name. So Blade Show is like the main one. It's the largest knife show, at least for America. And that's an annual one, always in Atlanta, Georgia. That's always in the first weekend of June. And then there's another show called Blade Show West, which is typically sometime in the fall. And that's always, I believe it's typically in Portland, Oregon. They recently just brought it back. The show has only been around for a couple of years, and we've been attending that one as well. So those 2 trade shows are really, really big for us. And it's a great way for us to actually come and meet our community in person. And you'd be surprised how many people actually travel just to hang out with us.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are kids as well. It's actually super cool.
When did you start heading to that show in Atlanta?
It was actually 2017.
Yeah.
And I went just because I love knives myself, and I wanted to know what it was like to go to a show and, see all these makers and talk to them about their knives. And so I went to Blade Show 2017 because I was interested, and also because I was actually invited. I was invited by the marketing coordinator at Blade HQ. So his name is Ben Peterson, and he saw that I had been writing some guides on Reddit. And he said, hey man, I saw your Reddit book guide on it was a buying guide. I wrote this comprehensive guide, like if you had X amount of money, what should you buy? And so he said, I saw your guide. I'd love to have you film a video with us at the show floor and just, talk about all these knives and tell us your expert opinion. And I was so taken aback. I couldn't believe that, they were inviting me, because I looked up to Blade HQ so much as a company, and, I really enjoyed their content at the time. And so, I traveled mainly because I like knives, but also like a big part of that was obviously being a part of the Blade HQ video. Yeah. And even to this day, people still tell me like, hey, like I found out about balisong because of your buyer's guide in 2017.
Wow.
I'm like, wow, that's amazing.
That is amazing. You were like the wire cutter of balisong.
Yeah. And he was kind enough to let me talk about my squid trainer in the video.
Yeah.
At the time I only had 1 product, and now we have, over 10 now. So it's crazy that he, looking back, that he let me be a part of that show. I was really honored.
That's great. So you were, at that point, you're just invited as Lucas. Mm-hmm. You're known online for your expertise, and then have you returned and like gotten booths, or do you host meetups when you go?
Yeah, so we get a booth now each show.
Yeah. When did it become for you the full time, this is what I've got to do?
that was going to be in the fall of 2018.
Okay.
I was going to UC San Diego, and I think halfway through that year or early in that year, I actually chose to go part-time at UC San Diego because it was becoming so much work.
Yeah.
And I really, really wanted to focus on it. It was growing so fast, and I wanted to put in more time. So I said, okay, I'm just going to extend my mechanical engineering degree by a year. And I'm going to work part-time, and I'm going to go to school part-time. And then in the fall of 2018, we bought our first CNC machine. It's like for those who don't know what CNC machines are, it stands for computer numeric control. And basically this is the foundation of most manufacturing companies. It's like how do I explain it?
Is it what you feed? So is this like a laser cutter? Is it
It's a vertical mill.
That's vertical mill.
Yeah, so a vertical CNC mill is just a very precise carving machine. It's what Fat used to make my parts for the original squid trainer, for the original G10 scales for the Kimura. And so those were pretty dated technologies back then. His machines that he was using, for my parents' company, those are pretty ancient. And so I had decided to buy a brand new one.
Yeah.
At the time, my plan was that I was going to come back home, learn how to use it, teach the next operator, and then go back to school. I was going to take a quarter off.
Okay.
When that quarter ended, I knew that there was just no way I was going to separate myself from the business physically anymore. So at that point, I at the end of that, I sent in my withdrawal in I believe that was the spring of 2019. And I just never went back to school. And it just became a full-time thing ever since then.
That's amazing. I was wondering how you would, because Fremont and San Diego are not close to each other.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah. I had a team back home.
Yeah. Great. So you go full-time spring of 2019. You've bought your own manufacturer. You've bought your own machine. Fat is now working for you full-time. What size team do you have these days?
So right now, there's currently about 16 people at Squid Industries.
Wow.
Yeah. And there's, I believe that 8 or 9 of them are full-time and the rest of them are part-time.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's grown quite a bit.
Yeah. Like in COVID, did you have to move things around the shop to get people further away, or was it in a space that already allowed safe, people to be in person and be safe?
Yeah. I mean, the CNC machines are quite large, so they're already like 20 feet apart. So that wasn't an issue. It was really the assembly that was more difficult. So people had to assemble at home and then like bring it back.
Yeah.
Yeah. Having such a physical job definitely made it pretty complicated with self-quarantining, but yeah, we were still able to make it work. It was very weird, but still manageable.
Yeah. What do you think is the future of balisong? What do you have? It seems like the internet and social media, from Instagram. When I was on TikTok, the TikTok algorithm did not put me down balisong TikTok, but I imagine it's there.
Oh yeah, for sure. There's definitely a large balisong TikTok audience for sure.
If you put on your prediction hat, where do you think it goes?
I think it'll go both ways, but definitely younger. That's the trend that I've seen the past few years, and that's what I see it'll continue. As kids get more access to social media, as they enter social media at a younger age, it's inevitable that they're going to be exposed to balisongs. And, I feel like, every kid, most kids at least, kind of see the same interest that I see in it, is that it's, it's a cool, fun hobby that's very flashy. Being able to perform these tricks requires a lot of skill, and it looks really cool for reasons I can't really describe. But it's because of that interest. Obviously, it's going to be something that a lot of kids want to get into earlier and earlier, and so they basically will continue to get into it as time goes on. Yeah, I only see that the future of it become more and more younger as the price comes down and things like that.
Yeah, it looks cool and it sounds cool. When I watch videos and there's not music to it, just I don't know. There's something about the clicking and the patterns of the tricks that is also really like almost meditative.
Yeah, definitely.
Now that you've had to find, you've turned your hobby into your career. What new hobbies do you have time to have? Like a new hobby? Is there something that you do when you're not now that you like 5 years ago never would have thought you were doing?
I guess recent hobbies would probably be sports. I was never too active, but I've been trying to have a more balanced lifestyle, and getting exercise is difficult. So I've been really getting into ping pong and tennis.
Nice.
Yeah, both of them have been really fun for us.
Yeah, tennis is my friends who played tennis. A rabbi at my synagogue played tennis into his late 90s.
Wow.
Like it's really a sport that once you're in it, you can be in it your whole life, which is pretty exciting about it.
Definitely.
Is there anything about balisong that I haven't asked you about that if we hung up, you'd be like, I didn't tell her this thing, or like a story that you love to tell that I haven't asked you about?
I can't really think of anything off the top of my head, really, but
have you had any like celebrity encounters? Are there any celebrities that have started doing this that are surprising or neat or unexpected balisong
not to my
enthusiasts?
Knowledge. Not to my knowledge. Not yet. I haven't had that breakthrough just quite, but I'm hoping one of these days for sure.
Great.
Yeah. I don't think that I have anything in particular that I feel like I really wish to convey. Other than that, for those of you who are interested, to consider trying it out, because it's honestly so much fun, and it's not nearly as threatening as it appears to be. And I think a lot of people are kind of scared of the hobby because of its connotations. A lot of people see butterfly knives in media, and it's always associated with some kind of gangster or mob boss, and because of that, it doesn't really have a great image. But really, it's just for fun. It's just for doing tricks, and if you're using a trainer, it's very safe.
Yeah. So if people are going to start, they start with a squid trainer. Mm-hmm. And then what are you like? What's a good first knife, to steer people away from the $20 wish.com knife? And then what's a good like mid-level? What are your picks for going into 2021?
So we have a relatively expansive list of products that range from $40 all the way up to $300. So there's quite a few options out there, and if anyone listening is curious, our website is squidindustries.co. So you can check out all of our products there. I would say that if you're very brand new, low budget, I think it makes sense to go with the Squiddy, which is our entry level product. Yep. We have 3 members of the Squiddy family. We have the standard Squiddy, which is the white one. We have the Squiddy C, which is the clear one, and the Squiddy B, which is the black one. And those are all in the range of $40 to $50. And those are great for people who are first getting into the hobby. They're great for kids because they're plastic. They're great for traveling because they're plastic. I say in general, it's just a really great introductory tool to the hobby. And then if you're trying to get more serious, we have metal trainers that start at $75. That's the Mako. It's a bottle opener, and it looks like a shark, so it has a less threatening profile for the parents who don't want their kids to make it look like they have a knife on them.
Right.
Up from there, at 110, we have the Triton, which looks just like a knife. So that's for the cool factor. As you go up in price from the Squiddy to Mako, the Triton, and then after that, the Squid Trainer, it's basically just an increase in quality. I would say that all of our products have not the same, but they all have flipping built into it. So, they're all really excellent flippers, but what you pay for is just the manufacturing and material quality so that they last longer.
Yeah.
So the Squid Trainer is in the mid 1 to 200s. It actually starts right in the middle, 150. And then if you want to go to the top end of what we've got, then we have the Nautilus and Kraken Trainer, which start in the low 200s. And they all those models that I mentioned, they all have variants that you can pimp out so that they have like all these bells and whistles that have certain colors and make them look really cool. But yeah, that's the majority of our product line there.
I really appreciate how you have leaned into the naming.
The naming has honestly been the most difficult part of the business.
Really?
It's because I'm very, very, very strict on the naming. It needs to be unique, it needs to be aquatic themed, and it needs to be cool. And those three things very rarely intersect. And the ones that do intersect, those are usually taken already by other knife companies. So it's been challenging.
Wow. I would say you've done a really solid marketing job with because I don't think you don't like hit people over the head that they're all related to the ocean. Mm-hmm. But as you're looking, you're like, aha, I get it. So I think it's really kudos to you on the marketing. You've done a really solid job with it.
Thanks.
Awesome. Well, Lucas, this has been fantastic. You have increased my cool aunt points by 1 million approximately. So I appreciate that.
Great. I'm glad.
So have a happy new year. Have a good rest of your weekend.
Yeah, you too. Happy New Year's. Thank you so much for having me.
I didn't ask you this, but where can people follow you online? Or like
our Instagram is just like our website. It just without the dot. Instagram is instagram.com/Squid Industries Co. or @Squid Industries Co. And then, our website is www.squidindustries.co.
Fantastic. So people should give the company a follow, learn more about it. It's fantastic. Have a good weekend. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Finding Favorites with Leah Jones. Please make sure to subscribe and drop us a 5-star review on iTunes. Now, go out and enjoy your favorite things.